What's the deal, family? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got another banger for y'all, man. So look, we got how a Scottish rugby coach made the Eagles unstoppable. We about to run this up one time for the one time, man. And look, bro, this video, honestly, it popped up into my homepage this morning while I was at work, and I'm like, how come nobody told me to react to this? How come I ain't seen no comments about this? I don't know. But either way, I'm about to run it up, man. So we all get into this video. For y'all who watch me, bro, I am an American. I do watch a lot of rugby. I am a rugby fan. But I've been a football fan my whole life. That's the sport I played. Eagles right now. I mean, the Eagles been looking nice for a few years. But like, I think they 8-1 right now, or 7-1. Either way, they winning, bro. They only lost one game, bro. Undefeated at home. They balling right now. I didn't even know that they had a Scottish rugby coach that was coaching their team. So we about to really do a deep dive into this one and see what they got going on. If you guys got more videos you want me to react to, more things you want me to check out, get at me in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe. Let me know what's going on. Also, right now, currently on my Patreon, I'm reacting to Weight of a Nation, All Blacks, the documentary. So if you're interested in checking that out, get at me on the Patreon. It's only $1 to subscribe. So let's get into this one, see what they got going on.
Brotherly shove. It's been the talk of the league over the last several weeks for sure.
They ran it 4 times. It's not the same for everybody. It just isn't.
If they were 1 yard better at it, they'd ban it midseason.
How many sneaks would the Eagles have to run to get Jason Kelce at least considered for MVP?
They have a lead with 7 minutes left. Guess what, guys? Brotherly shove until the clock is expired, they ban it midseason.
How the other teams that have tried to replicate it have not been able to do it. Then I think everybody said, whoa, wait a minute. We can't ban this play because it's just the Eagles' execution of it that has made it so perfect. It's not the fact that it's some unstoppable play.
Is it fair? No, it's not. Is there a way to stop it? No, there isn't.
People can't do it like we can do it. If everybody could do it, everybody would do it.
To my knowledge, there is only one man alive who has coached in the NFL, in rugby union, in rugby league, and in sevens, and that's Richie Gray. When Jason Kelce
he's coached union, league, sevens, and the NFL. Dog, I'm just saying, like, when it comes to physicality and understanding how that works and how to treat that, if you're looking at sports in general, I don't know if there's 4 better sports that are able to help you learn how to do that. I got more I want to say on this, and I hate saying stuff after somebody else says it. I like to be the first person to say it, and then they say it in the video, because then it affirms my ego and that I know what I'm saying. But I'm going to wait till I say what I want to say. Hopefully they don't say it, but I'm going to wait till I say what I want to say. But there's no other better sports in terms of all of that. Even just all the rugby alone. Sevens, league, and union. That could turn into magical coaching potentially in the NFL. Specifically when it comes to offensive and defensive lines. But let's continue.
Recently mentioned that the Eagles had brought in a Scotsman to consult with them and offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. Richie Gray is who he was talking about.
But this Scottish guy came in and he's talking to Jeff Stoutland, and Stout was like, what would you do to try and stop this? Like, how would you stop this play? And the guy says, Coach, there ain't nothing you can do to stop it. It's organized mass. It's organized mass, and there's nothing they can do as long as you're organized. There's too much people going in the same direction at the same time.
And both Jason and Coach Gray are right about that point, by the way, because 41 out of the 44 times when the Eagles have run the brotherly shove over the last year and a half or so, they've converted either a first down or a touchdown on it. That's a 93% success rate. No other play in football works 93% of the time. Like, even a normal QB sneak is only about 80% on its best day.
Fact.
So this is the closest that we've ever come to seeing a truly unstoppable play in the NFL. Or at least it's unstoppable for one team, because the Eagles apparently are the only offense that has been able to consistently pull this off. That does beg the question, though, why are the Eagles better at running this play than everybody else?
The rucks.
Why is their mass
scrum.
organized better than the
maul.
mass of every single defensive line they've faced so far this year? Well, to answer that, I've poured over...
It's called scrum, ruck, and maul, the SRN. All right? The SRN, if you took that SRN and you took all the perfections of all those three and you integrated that into NFL, it would work perfect. And I mean literally perfect for an offensive line. You could even argue it might work damn near almost just as well for a defensive line. But they do have to react based on the offensive line. So they're a step ahead. Small step ahead, but they are a step ahead. Versus in scrums, mauls, and the like, everything's happening kind of in unison. But for the SRMs, those translate perfectly right into the offensive defensive line in NFL.
over every single snap where the Eagles have ran this play, as well as the snaps where every other NFL team has tried to run it, and I've come away with three main observations for why Philly is so effective at this style of quarterback sneak. And no, before you blurt it out, it's not just because they have a Hall of Fame center, a bunch of guys pushing from behind, and a quarterback that squats 600 pounds. There's a lot more to it than that. In fact, to me, this is the most misunderstood play in the NFL because the technical nuances of how the Eagles have run it have not really been highlighted yet by anyone. And I also think that a lot of the defenses that they have faced have had really bad technique themselves. And by the way, on that note, I do think that there is one defense in the NFL who maybe just put out a technical blueprint for how to slow this style of play down. And I also think that they got their inspiration for their technique from the same place where the Eagles got their own inspiration. Of course, referring to rugby, but I'll get to that point a little bit later because it's kind of complicated. Now, before we dig into everybody's favorite school subjects, of course being physics and biomechanics, I know my audience apparently, I do want to thank Factor for making this episode possible in the first place, and full disclosure, I am going to put the ad read in the end of this video because I want to be respectful of your time and just kind of get right into it. But I want to thank Factor for making it possible, as well as for making delicious, delicious food that I eat every single week, and you can find that delicious food in the description with a really hefty discount and all that, but I will get to them later. For now, I want to start with what you all are actually here for, and that is the technique behind the dominance of the Eagles' offensive line. I mentioned that I have three observations based on studying every angle of every rep of this play, and those observations are as follows, and we're going to break these sections down one at a time. Part one is going to be the combined technique of Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and Jason Kelce making up the left side of the Eagles' offensive line. Part two will be the role of Jalen Hurts himself in this play, as well as the guys who are tasked with pushing him. And part three will be the alignment and technique of the defensive line that, in my opinion, are generally not ideal, and why I think they're making the Eagles' jobs even easier than they already are. Let's start with Kelce, Dickerson, and Mailata, because contrary to popular belief, the majority of the Eagles' brotherly shoves do not actually go directly behind Kelce. Most of them actually go behind Dickerson and Mailata.
That's normal. That's normal. That's normal. In American football, you almost never... The typical QB sneak in American football is through the middle. So the typical QB sneak that you'll see generally through American football over the course of many, many years is right up the middle. They're going either directly to the left or directly to the right, in between the guards. You got the center, then you got your guards, and you got your tackles, and then, tight ends, etc. They're going to go right in between the center and the guard, either on the left or the right. That's a typical QB sneak. What they do is go, what he's basically saying, right outside. So they're going right in between the guard and the tackle. Right in between that zone, which nobody's going to expect. On the opposite end, you got the strong side defense, which is this side, right? You got, I think there's 3, 4, 5 offensive linemen. You got your D ends right here. You got your middle linebacker, 2 outsides, safety coming in, corners coming in. Boom. You know what I mean? Like, this is the strong side. You see he's right there. He's in the middle. He's high and to the left. That's what they're going to take. They're going to take that route versus taking that route. Makes more sense. You only got this far to go. He's way over there. He's way over there. Why are we going on this side? You don't go on this side. Got the same amount of guys. And he's bigger than him. So, defenses are preparing for the QB sneak that's typically done in the NFL, which is right in between here, right in between here. But they're going to do is lift up everybody else so that they can keep traction on their feet, gives them enough yardage to be able to boom. Versus in most QB sneaks, everybody collapses. So think about like a scrum. If a scrum collapses, that's what typically happens. But they more so try to form a maul, right? And when they form that maul, that's going to allow them to be able to get some traction on their feet for the offensive lineman to give them the QB enough space to get the point. Or to, advance the first down.
Lotta, because they're the biggest and strongest members of this line, to the point where even on some occasions where Hurts did aim to his right rather than to his left, he still ended up getting washed all the way to the left side of the Eagles line behind Mailata because that's where they got the most push. And a big reason why Hurts mostly goes to his left is because of how those three work together on the left side to intentionally create a wall right as the ball is snapped. Some coaches refer to this as closing the gate, and when you play a lot of these pushes in slow motion, you can see that Kelsey and Mailata's first steps are oftentimes closing in on the shoulders of Dickerson as they surge forward, kind of to create a human wedge at the point of attack. They do this so that there's always at least one area of the offensive line where no defensive penetration is allowed, so that they can create a tip of the spear, so to speak. If there is penetration allowed in the A, B, or C gaps on the right side, they're generally okay with that. Allowed in the...
all right, let's look at this again, though. Again, look at pre-play. Pre-play. If you were to look at the defense and say, on the defense, which side is the strong side and which side is the weak side? This is the strong side. Look at all these players. You got him right here. He's even leaning towards the left. He's right there. 25 is right there. 7's right there. 22 is right there. 5 is right there. If we go from the middle, and we say who got over here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dudes that's not linemen. Here we got 1, 2, 3 dudes that's not linemen. It's pretty obvious we're going to go weak side.
Play a lot of these pushes in slow motion, you can see that Kelsey and Mailata's first steps are oftentimes closing in on the shoulders of Dickerson as they surge forward, kind of to create a human wedge at the point of attack. They do this so that there's always at least one area of the offensive line where no defensive penetration is allowed, so that they...
This is one of the probably the only example, really, where now they're actually going to go strong side.
Can create a tip of the spear,
and it
so
works.
to speak. If there is penetration allowed in the A, B, or C gaps on the right side, they're generally okay with that in Philly because most of the time they only care about the left side. That is where they are attacking with their organized mass. Secondly, after Kelsey, Dickerson, and Mailata close that gate, on many instances of this play, you can see all of them literally bear crawling forward, shoulder to shoulder, while churning their feet as hard as possible. It's not a normal double team by football standards where they're just getting their hands in a defensive lineman's chest or even using their hands at all.
Again, going weak side.
They're just getting low, keeping their backs parallel to the ground, hands on the grass, shoulders basically welded together, and churning forward as one combined entity. Believe it or not, a lot of NFL teams didn't used to run sneaks like that. I mean, you can go back to the Buffalo Bills just a couple of years ago in another short yardage situation where they tried to run a sneak with Josh Allen. And just look at their splits on the offensive line. They're super far apart, basically inviting penetration, and they try to just run a normal double team on the nose tackle for Allen.
See, he tried to do the same thing right in between the center and the guard, and then that didn't work, so he tried to bust in between the guard and the tackle.
The run behind, which of course fails. Just like Jason Kelsey himself has said, it's not exactly like a rugby scrum because by rule, offensive players are not allowed to interlock themselves together, so he's technically right about that. But functionally speaking, from a leverage perspective and how the Eagles are concentrating their force together as one entity in that wedge, I would argue that they're acting similarly to the front row of a rugby scrum with Dickerson as the hooker and both Kelsey and Mailata as the props. It's not exactly the same, I know, but it's kinda close. Now, beyond offensive line technique, my second observation of this play is the role of Hurts himself, as well as the tight ends, receivers, and running backs that are tasked with pushing him. I think the fact that Hurts squats a bunch is a little overblown within the context of this play design, and I admit that even I was guilty of this as well before I really dug into the tape. But truth be told, Hurts isn't even on the ground to push on his own on half of these shove plays anyway. He's just along for the ride, surfing over the top of a wave of bodies while his receivers push him over that pile to make sure he can roll down the other side. To use
It's a reverse maul.
Metaphor here, he isn't the driver of the armored car that's picking up all these first downs and touchdowns. He's the bag of money that's being carried within that armored car while the offensive line hits the gas and the receivers are at the wheel. I've seen some arguments that all you have to do to beat this play is just get lower than the Eagles' offensive line, but that's not necessarily true. All that matters is that the pile exists for Hurts to get shoved over the top of, even if the defensive line goes under that pile. I mean, hell, Jonathan Allen was literally lying down on all fours in front of Dickerson trying to get lower than him, and Dickerson just went over him because his only goal is to churn his feet, go forward by any means necessary, and make that wave for Hurts.
Exactly.
As long as that wave exists, then the play will succeed. And that brings me conveniently to my final observation: the techniques that opposing defensive lines have been playing and why they are so ineffective at stopping the creation of that wave. Now, I've mentioned several times already that the left side of the offensive line is key to this play and how they can all immediately close the gate and bear crawl together to make a wedge. But what I haven't mentioned yet is that oftentimes the defense's alignment is what makes their wedge possible. You can look at the Miami game from last week as an example, where on multiple instances of these sneaks, they had big bodies in the A-gaps over Kelsey, but then left Mailata basically uncovered with only a safety, Javon Holland, in the B-gap, as if Holland was supposed to stop.
It's because they're playing for the typical QB sneak right here, or right here. That's what they're playing for. They're not playing for this because nobody does that. In a QB sneak, nobody does that. But they
Mailata from just effortlessly surging forward. Again, the Eagles almost never go directly forward on these shove plays. They wait for Mailata and Dickerson to create the wave to the left, and then they ride that wave. So to line up in a way where you aren't even challenging Mailata off the snap, I mean, it's no wonder why the Dolphins were powerless to stop this play. Additionally, the technique that individual defensive linemen are using to take on these blocks is, in my opinion,
right up the
wrong
middle
as well. If the Eagles are going to use similar physics and philosophies to rugby in terms of how they organize their mass, then you have to match rugby philosophy with rugby philosophy. When you look at a scrum, for instance, the front wall is never taking on that contact at an angle. Everyone is locked together, they're squared up with each other, and all of their force is going straight ahead at the direction of their opponent. Contrast that now with how a lot of defensive linemen have played against the Eagles this year, and you can see that they're often lined up in a cocked alignment to try to get penetration, which ironically is exactly what the Eagles want them to do because their splits are so tight that they're not going to allow any penetration anyway, and all you're really doing as a defensive lineman here is giving them a better angle to block you. If you're receiving the force of a block from the side, you're not going to be able to anchor against it as well as you would if it was coming straight at you. That's just physics, and to a degree biomechanics. It doesn't matter if you're the low man, if they're going straight ahead and you're not, you will go backwards.
Yes.
Again, look at the first Commanders game where Allen was literally on the ground in his pre-snap alignment. He took on Dickerson and Mailata from the side, and even though he was lower, they just immediately washed him out of the way. The same thing happened to the Buccaneers. You've got a cocked alignment from William Golston because he thinks he needs to be penetrating the A-gap, but all that does is just create a clean surface area for Mailata and Dickerson to completely blow him off the ball from the side so that Hurts can get an easy first down. Alignment and technique are everything for this play when it comes to both how it's executed as well as how it's defended. Every gap needs to be filled, and every defensive lineman needs to take on these blocks squarely so that they can match force with force. The only team so far that I've seen take on this play correctly, in my opinion, is the team that features a former Eagles defensive lineman that's probably seen this play a time or two in practice.
Hey, the Niners, what did I say earlier? The Niners. He said earlier, what other team can stop this? And I said the Niners. If you don't remember, go run it back and replay it. I said the Niners.
So far that I've seen take on this play correctly, in my opinion, is the team that features a former Eagles defensive lineman that's probably seen this play a time or two in practice, of course referring to Javon Hargrave and the San Francisco 49ers. Look at how they lined up here against the Vikings, who tried to run it themselves last Monday night. Every defensive lineman is square to the line of scrimmage, and all of them are in an individual gap, fitting together like teeth on a zipper, or more accurately, like a very long, extended front line of teeth on a zipper.
You see that? Gap. That person has to pick and choose who they gonna take. Obviously, you take him, 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 you take him. Because we gonna go this way. As you decide who you gonna take, you got two people free to kind of do what they do. Deadly.
Or more
I don't want to say deadly. It helps stop this unstoppable play.
Accurately, like a very long, extended front line of a rugby scrum that just isn't locked together with their arms, and there's no second line of defenders in between all of their thighs. Actually, that sounds kind of wrong, but trust me, just Google what a rugby scrum looks like. That'll make sense. What I'm trying to say here is they aren't trying to fit more than one guy into each gap. They're all taking on that contact straight ahead, and only one player, Fred Warner, is going to be the one trying to get over the top of the pile to meet Kirk before he can get pushed over it. Because of this alignment and technique, not only does the offensive line get no push because there's no easy double teams to exploit, and nobody's getting washed down from the side, but Warner getting a clean shot at Kirk meant that the secondary push from the running backs went nowhere either. To me, this is how you stop the brotherly shove, or at least slow it down.
Yeah.
And the 49ers are the only team that I've seen do this correctly. Now, does this success mean that they're automatically going to have it stopped against the Eagles? No, of course not, because the Eagles themselves are a bigger, stronger offensive line than Minnesota. And I'm also sure that they have all manner of other tricky plays that they can dial up after faking the brotherly shove, which they've also put on tape this year. I'm not saying that the 49ers are absolutely going to stop this when they face the Eagles later this season, but I am saying that if anybody could, it's probably them.
I think so,
I guess
too.
We'll have to wait until December to find out. If you are still here this late in the episode, for starters, thank you on behalf of a smug sense of satisfaction of this channel is
Okay, this all getting into his personal. Shouts out to you though, my boy. Good video. Great fucking video. I wish you just put a maul into the play. I wish you put a maul into play because a maul actually, even though I did say reverse maul, a maul, once the player who would essentially be the quarterback gets the ball, it looks very similar to after the play is started in these brotherly shoves. So I wish he did show that instead of only comparing it to a scrum. But either way though, great video. Like I said, man, it's different the way they do it in comparison to a typical rugby scrum. I'm sorry, different, incomparable to a typical QB sneak or, fullback sneak, fullback, straight through type of play or whatever it may be. But I hope y'all enjoyed that video and that reaction. Y'all let me know how you feel about it. Get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Send me more videos to react to. Make sure to go check out the Weight of a Nation documentary on my Patreon. It's only $1. And that's pretty much it. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Remember to keep it real. Real is rare. Real always reaches everyone. And I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace.